Good morning, Texoma. I'm Ashley Fitzwater, and this morning we're taking an inside look at stories that truly impact you and your everyday lives. We're starting with a look at the drought and tough water restrictions that have quickly followed, even a look at the war on drugs and why some feel that part of that battle has forced taxpayers to foot an unnecessary bill. Joining me now with an inside look at our first story is our very own News Channel 6, Chris Horgan. And Chris, we want to first of all say thanks for being here with us this morning.
Happy to be here, Ashley, as always.
Well, we are talking about the drought. And of course, this is something that is just the talk of the town. It's on everyone's mind. We have lake levels at 24.5%, stage 5, full force. But what's going to happen next? We see those lake levels continuing to shrink. So that's what your next story is, stage 5. Then what? Can you tell us what is next for Texoma?
No one's really for certain. At the very beginning of the story, you'll hear everybody says we have no plan for stage 6. We're waiting. We're hoping for rain. But the water reuse project is one of the things that I think could make a huge benefit once it's online. We were hoping it would already be online by now, but the state had other plans and has required more testing. So hopefully it'll be online soon. It would bring in about 5 million gallons of water per day. We use about 15, we treat about 15 million gallons of water every day. So what they think they might have to do is a third of that come from the water reuse, a third from the lakes, and then possibly stepping up into Lake Kemp. That's another discussion that's being had. But Lake Kemp salty water, expensive to treat, hard to treat, and it would probably change the way everybody's water is because it's going to taste a little bit different because all that salt that they can't get at all out and get most of it out.
Now, was there anything that really just stood out to you or surprised you?
I think what surprised me the most is I asked Russell Schreiber about long-term solutions, about Lake Ringgold or going to the Panhandle Aquifer or something like that. And one of the things I heard him say was that that's a 10-year project that's probably $1 billion, whichever way you looked at it. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of money. And, you know, they've caught a lot of slack about why wasn't this planned in the future, but nobody foresaw the drought like this. So, I mean, there's just... they do what they got to do now. They're trying to fix it. They're doing everything they can. And I feel for them because it is a really, really tough project.
Goes back to praying for rain, I guess, and just being happy we get what we have. So, and conserving, of course. Well, thank you, Chris. And again, in case you missed it the first time, here's another look at stage 5. Then what?
What we're counting on is some rain.
I don't think there's going to be a stage 6. There's not a lot of quick turnaround options.
It does not matter who you ask. The drought continues, and there are no easy options unless it rains. Stage 5 is just about as far as most restrictions can go.
We feel like, as far as the discretionary water is concerned, we've done about all we can and keep people in the city, you know, going.
There are still a few businesses that could see further restrictions should lake levels keep dropping.
When the lakes, combined lakes of Kickapoo and Arrowhead reach 20%, car washes are shut off totally.
The only way car washes could stay open is if they could find a source of water other than city water. One thing that could keep us away from a stage 6, besides rain, is the temporary water reuse project. The consensus is that project will make a big difference in where our water comes from.
It's about all we can do at this point. It's 5 million gallons a day will be a third of our supply or our demand. On paper, it's going to have a substantial impact on the extending the supply of the lakes.
Wichita Falls Utilities Operations Manager Daniel Nix agrees.
The reuse project is a big relief. Obviously, it's going to supplant what we're taking out of the lakes, hopefully make those lakes last a lot longer.
Nix also said the reuse project will give the city other options when it comes to processing all the water possible if the levels do not rise, and that would include using Lake Kemp. Wichita Falls has rights to the last 50,000 acre feet. That's about 18 billion gallons of water. But at that level, the salt-filled water is not easy to treat and would require the city to make some changes.
We've cut it off for the last 6 or 8 months because we can't treat it. It's too salty. Even with the MFRO plant, we can't treat it down enough and blend it back with the Arrowhead and Kickapoo water where we can't get hardly any yield out of it. But if worst comes to worst, we may have to do something.
Using Lake Kemp water could also jeopardize the largest power plant in Texoma.
You've got a 250 megawatt power plant that in the next year could be out of water and out of business.
That AEP coal plant uses a lot of water to turn its turbines and produce that power. That water comes from Lake Kemp, and the plant's owners are one of the groups that have given money to the cloud seeding efforts in the falls in hopes that more rain will fall on Lake Kemp. Another big water-using industry that was left out of Stage 5 restrictions is the restaurant business. They saw big restrictions when the city went into Stage 3.
There's not much more to do, yeah. But, other than just continue to pay attention and be diligent on a daily basis.
Luby's Cafeteria in Wichita Falls is one of many restaurants that has looked into saving water by using paper goods. It was a suggestion that the North Texas Restaurant Association made. Brian Press told us that just buying paper plates would run around $4,000 a month. And factoring in water bill savings and some other factors, the cost comes down to about $3,000, all to save less water than the average 2 homes would use in a month.
To spend $3,000 for a household and a half worth of water. But if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. Yeah, we'll do our part.
Another Wichita Falls-based company is working to save a large amount of water that could make a difference in a possible Stage 6.
We've got a big project going with PPG right now to conserve 200,000 gallons a day.
That project is partially funded by the city of Wichita Falls and would bring gray water to PPG, and it was the company's idea. Daniel Nick sees them as an example we can all follow.
When you have a major industry like that, that's a national, international industry, and they say, you know what, we care, we want to stay here, we're going to do what it takes. That's the message that needs to be sent. We're all in this together, and it's going to take all of us doing it.
Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we're taking an inside look at stories that impact you. And now joining me is Taylor Barnes. And Taylor, we appreciate you taking time to be here with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
We're excited to talk about pot possession, who pays. Unfortunately, the war on drugs continues to be a conversation we have. It continues to impact our community. And whenever it comes to specifically marijuana crimes, I understand hundreds of people were charged with the crime last year alone in Wichita County. And you found residents seem to be footing the bill for every single one of those cases. Now, you reached out to law enforcement for their response, and what they have to say.
Well, yeah, I talked to Sheriff David Duke of Wichita County, and he said that this is really a burden all across the board on law enforcement. Really, when anyone is caught with a misdemeanor amount of marijuana, it's a long process. So the taxpayers are paying for the law enforcement officer, a jailer, a probation officer, the judge, the jury, that's taking time out of their day, also the district attorney's time, everyone's time, and once again, the taxpayers, they're always footing the bill for this.
So what surprised you the most? Whenever you were digging into this story and finding out information, what just really stood out to you?
Well, one thing that really surprised me was that according to the American Civil Liberties Union, Texas is ranked #2 amongst misdemeanor marijuana charges, and that costs taxpayers about a year $300 million. It's very interesting.
And all of this, of course, goes back to the decriminalization debate and really just the ongoing controversy that will continue, I guess.
Oh, yes.
For years to come.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of residents, I should say, and they had like their own opinions, of course, on decriminalization. So.
All right. Well, Texoma, now we want to know where you stand on the issue. So here's another look in case you missed it the first time, or just check it out again at Taylor's story. It's called Pot Possession, Who Pays?
I feel like it's really ridiculous how much money gets spent keeping these people in jail.
Get caught with 2 to 4 ounces of marijuana and it's a Class A misdemeanor. Less than 2 ounces, you're slapped with the Class B misdemeanor. But that's not stopping people from using. In fact, it seems more people than ever are lighting up.
We do see a bigger increase in the last probably 5 to 10 years of marijuana that is more prevalent.
Over 400 misdemeanor marijuana cases were filed last year in Wichita County. And it's you, the taxpayer, whose money is being spent on what some consider is a waste of money.
I feel that people shouldn't waste their time getting put in jail, having to pay all these extra funds, and taxpayers having to pay money to house these people and feed these people over a small crime, well, I wouldn't even call it a crime.
From the moment a person is arrested, the costs start adding up. Here's what you're paying for: a law enforcement officer, a jailer, a probation officer, a district attorney, and a public defender. That's not to mention a judge if the case should go to trial, as well as the time of each person on the jury. That's time away from their jobs, their families, and other obligations. The entire process is time consuming.
Once you get the drug, it has to be tested. It has to be tested by the state lab, DPS. And then we get it back, then we got to destroy it once the court says destroy it. Then we got to make sure it's destroyed properly. And it all costs money to do all these things. It is a big burden all across the board in law enforcement.
They get put in jail, they have to go to court, they have court costs, they have probation fees and probation fines.
Throughout that process, we're incurring the costs of county employees. Obviously, you have the jail and the sheriff's department. You have the district attorney's time. They're all paid through the county. You have my time and other assistant public defenders. We're paid through the county. You have the cost of the probation department. So that department is also paid for through county tax dollars, not including the time that it's spent in court, taking up the judge's time and the court personnel.
22 states have chosen to legalize marijuana of some form. Texas could be added to that list in the future. Just this year, Governor Rick Perry said he supports moving the state towards marijuana decriminalization, an idea residents we spoke to like to hear.
I feel that there's bigger issues here in the city that they should be worried about than trying to lock people up for small amounts of marijuana.
It's a lot of jail space that could be used for people that are committing real crimes, and decriminalizing would just be a really good thing. It would keep a lot of good people out of trouble.
But for every person supporting decriminalization, there are others who don't want to see anything change. But no one against it would speak to us on camera. Taylor Barnes, News Channel 6.
Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we're taking an inside look at stories that impact you, Texoma, and stories that you reached out to us about. Joining me now with one of those is our very own News Channel 6 reporter, Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy, thanks for being here with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.
Absolutely. Now, we're talking about chemtrails controversy. We've all seen the planes in the sky and seen the lines left behind. Those are often identified as contrails. But there's a lot of controversy about contrails versus chemtrails. So can you break that down for us and tell us what that means?
Well, there's contrails, and that's the meteorological phenomenon. That's the thing that when you see those planes flying in the sky, they leave this trail behind, and that's what people are talking about. But then there's people who disagree, saying that there's chemtrails that are putting hazardous material in the atmosphere, and talked to a lot of people in Texoma. We first noticed there was a lot of conversation about it on our Facebook page. A lot of people were bringing it up and going back and forth, and people have really strong opinions about this particular matter. I talked to one woman who happens to believe in chemtrails about it, and she says she's done some research on it, and she just happens to see them here in Texoma frequently, and she's like, it really triggered her curiosity, and so she continued to do research, and I reached out to her, and then I reached out to a military expert at Sheppard Air Force Base. He doesn't believe that's something that the military does, spraying toxic chemicals out of their planes, whether it's a mission or here at home in the U.S. And I also talked to an expert with SOAR who does the cloud seeding here in Wichita Falls about the matter. And he says he's heard about it, but as he said, it's not the real thing.
Whenever you were digging for answers, was there anything that surprised you that maybe you didn't know before?
Well, I did, when doing research, I looked up some, and there was a piece of, I would say, legislation that was going up by Dennis Kucinich, who's a former representative in Ohio. And in his piece of legislation, it had the term chemtrails in it, But then when you go back to more updated legislation, it seemed that that term was taken out. So it must have been a lot of controversy in between that. And I think a lot of chemtrail believers actually bring up that point. If you talk about it, it's like, well, it wasn't legislation, it was.
Right.
And then it was taken out, and then, so that's one thing they said. So they believe that, one representative believed in it, so it could be possibly true, according to them.
Well, Jimmy, we appreciate again your time. And in case you missed it the first time, here is another look at the chemtrails controversy.
The sight of planes flying across the North Texas skyline, leaving white trails, is not uncommon in Texoma.
I see it every day in the sky, and I just figure it's ice crystals from the engines.
I've given it some thought. I've read up on them, so that has put a little bit of thought there in my mind that it may be something else.
These lines are commonly known as contrails. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration defines contrails as the condensation trail left behind a passing jet plane.
At certain levels of the atmosphere where the temperature and where the pressure and where the relative humidity are in favorable amounts, contrails can easily form if aircraft pass through them. Some of the contrails, they can last for a few minutes, and some of the contrails can actually last, if the conditions are favorable, they can last for several hours. They can become stretched, they can become miles wide, and it takes them a long time to dissipate. But again, they're still just water vapor and ice crystals.
Chemtrail theorist, or not so sold, Juniper Holmes believes the government could be spraying toxic chemicals in our atmosphere instead.
I don't put that past the government to do any testing on us without us knowing it, to see how we react to it.
Holmes says she's done some research on chemtrails and believes the government using us to test military operations is not far-fetched.
When I look back over the years and when like our soldiers have gone into battle, I know that they've used chemicals to test.
But when we asked a technical sergeant at Sheppard Air Force Base about chemtrails,
the only thing that I'm aware of are contrails, and that's a naturally occurring meteorological phenomenon.
Gary Walker, project manager of Seeding Operations and Atmospheric Research, or SOAR, acknowledges the term.
I know there's some conspiracy theories about chemtrails and the fact that the federal government is putting things out.
Walker, who's also a pilot with thousands of hours logged in air, says chemtrail theories have been around for a long time, but he puts his beliefs in science.
When you see a trail of something up in the air, it's just not logical that that could fall to the ground like something falls to the ground like out of an agricultural airplane that sprays a crop or sprays mosquitoes. It couldn't fall here to the earth when those airplanes are flying at 30,000 feet.
But that isn't enough to sway Juniper Holmes' beliefs.
So why couldn't that be a possibility, to see what takes place so that they can use it maybe in chemical warfare?
Either way, many in Texoma are thinking twice when they see those familiar trails in the sky.
So now when I take a look at them, when I see them, I kind of think of that.
Welcome back, Texoma. Once again, we're taking an inside look at stories you only saw on 6. This next story, of course, is close to my heart because it's the story I've been following for a year as we continue our walk with Irene. Now, a Texoma woman has actually added 5 years to her life in as little as 9 months. It's truly inspirational. We are continuing our walk with Irene with the latest story about how she cannot complete this journey of weight loss on her own. We even had a chance to meet up with some of Irene's closest friends to talk about her decision to get weight loss surgery back in August. And they were very candid with me as I met up with them to talk about the woman they've known for the past 17 years transform right before their eyes.
She's more joyful. She's got life to live now.
She's been a participant in the direction her life is going and not just along for the ride.
Powerful words from friends who know this 44-year-old woman best. I joined them in the downtown square of Decatur, Texas to make a day of it as they took me back 9 months to when Irene, who started this journey at 335 pounds, called them to say she was going under the knife.
I remember her saying to me, You probably won't like this.
Fear was first, and then I was happy for her having a purpose and a mission to accomplish something.
She was doing it for all the right reasons. She wanted to see her grandkids when that day came. She wanted to see her daughter walk down the aisle, and she wanted to be healthy and off medication. And all I could say at that point was, hey, I'm behind you 100%.
It's encouraging because sometimes I do doubt myself, but yet I always have their voices in my head saying, you go, girl. You did the right thing for you.
Since taking you inside the operating room back in August, Irene has shed 87 pounds. She's defeated diabetes and no longer has to take a plate full of medication just to get through the day. A transformation her friends see from the inside out.
Has so much more confidence in herself now, not because she's lost weight, because she's taken control of her life.
Her ability to step outside of her comfort zone and say, yeah, I can do this.
Every day is a challenge, but when I do think about the good words that I'm told, it brings a smile to my face. I know I did something right and I am helping people.
And that includes her friend Carol. They actually met in a weight loss focused Bible study. And in the past, Carol has also shared in the struggle to walk a healthier path.
It's encouragement to hear her when she's talking about her exercise regimen and what things she's doing, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to step up my game here a little bit more and do some of those things too.
Another person who's been a rock in this journey is Irene's daughter, Ariana. The past 9 months has allowed them to do things together they never could in the past. Most recently, it was a family birthday where mother and daughter got to hit the dance floor.
I twirled her and she twirled me and we danced and we moved. And at the end of the night I'm thinking, I could not have done that last year. And that was a memory that, I mean, it was incredible. It makes me sad that I didn't do this sooner. And I encourage people who are looking at this story that if it's something that they think I'll do it next year, don't wait till next year. Whatever it be, lap band, gastric bypass, even just getting on a diet and getting up off the couch, just do it.
We want to say thanks for joining us this morning. As always, you can take another look at all of those stories online at newschannel6now.com. Once you're there, just click on the Only on 6 link. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and we hope you have a wonderful day. And as always, we'll see you back here next Sunday morning for another look inside Texas.